so much for staying with us. We remind you to download the CVM TV app from the Google Play Store. Opposition spokesperson on finance, Mark Golding, is calling on the government to formulate a strategic response to the risk of higher oil prices. We hear from CVM Live's Nicole Wilson.
The government needs to articulate a plan to address the risks associated with rising oil prices. That's the call from opposition spokesperson on finance, Mark Golding, who says analysts have predicted a rise in the price of oil in the coming months of up to $100 per barrel. Golding says the impact on Jamaica would be great, as the funding from PetroCaribe has basically dried up.
The situation in Venezuela has become very difficult, and I don't think they're in a position to provide oil on those terms, certainly in the volumes that they were able to before. So that's one difficulty that Jamaica faces, because we'll have to pay cash up front for our oil purchases, and as the price rises, obviously that's more challenging.
While the People's National Party was in power, they imposed a tax on oil, which Golding says was used to fund a hedge program. This hedge program acted as insurance in the event that oil prices started to rise. This has been abandoned by the current Andrew Holness-led administration.
This government discontinued the oil hedging program and used that tax instead to finance their 1.5 election promise. And in fact, they increased the taxes on oil, but used none of the tax revenue to protect Jamaica from the dangers of an increase in oil prices. And now with the geopolitical situation in the world,
Golding adds that it would be difficult to institute a hedge program at this time, pointing to a number of factors.
Certainly a hedging program should be explored. The problem with that is, with the trend in the price currently, it will be much more expensive to hedge, and the price at which you'll be able to hedge will be higher.
Despite his criticism, Golding has suggested some ways government can address the risk associated with rising oil prices.
We have to encourage energy efficiency. We have to look at the public transportation moving to natural gas, as is done, for example, in parts of India, where buses and so on run on CNG rather than on oil. And we also need to look at trying to fast-track our foreign exchange earning industries that are in a growth mode, and remove the inefficiencies in the economy that stymie exports and hamper small businesses that might be trying to take advantage of international markets.
Nicole Wilson, CVM Live.
The Westmoreland Police are reporting a double murder in separate incidents in that parish last evening. Albert Tomlinson of Venture Hall, Darlaston, was gunned down inside his home. Reports are citizens heard explosions and observed Mr. Tomlinson slumped in a chair at the doorway of his house with what appeared to be gunshot wounds. In another incident on Rickett Street in Savannah Mar, 48-year-old Anthony Blake was found in bushes along the roadside with what appeared to be stab wounds to the neck and chest. He was rushed to hospital where he was pronounced dead. Nigerian High Commissioner to Jamaica, Janet Elissa, is seeking to strengthen ties between Jamaica and the West African nation. Elissa told CVM Live on Saturday that two countries are finalizing a bilateral agreement. CVM Live's Vaughn Thorpe reports.
Jamaica and Nigeria have had diplomatic ties since the 1970s, and the newly appointed High Commissioner Janet Elissa is seeking to strengthen that relationship.
What the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade and I are doing right now is, how do we fine-tune this agreement, reduce it, bring what is right now most critical, and then in future we build on it, rather than having an omnibus agreement that is just general.
Noting that this can be done through culture and also through trade and air services, improvement of which is paramount.
Because Nigeria for now has no carrier. We have no national carrier. And but we can allow the private sector to make use of the bilateral air service agreements. All we need to do is get the private sector involved and interested.
Though not documented, the High Commissioner disclosed products she knows of that are imported from Jamaica and suggests ways both countries can cooperate given the similarity in climate.
What we're trying to do is let's document it, let's know what exactly is happening. But I do know we take a lot of Jamaican rum because we don't brew rum at all. We don't do that. We do more spirits and beer. And but I believe that, for example, our textile can sell very well. It's cotton. Jamaica is warm, just like Nigeria, and we can kind of cooperate on that.
Appointed as Nigerian High Commissioner to Jamaica since September 2017, Janet Olisa is hoping to have a joint bilateral commission meeting by the end of 2018. I'm Vaughn Thorpe for CVM Live.
In latest developments now involving the Firearm Licensing Authority, there are staunch criticisms being levelled against aspects of the process in the parish of Manchester. As CVM Live's Rohan Daly tells us, one allegation points to application impropriety.
The Firearm Licensing Authority, FLA, says it's continuing its unrelenting drive to rid the country of applicants whose intention it is to gain firearm through nefarious means. CEO Shane Darling only recently, while addressing a group of justices of the peace in Manchester, says JPs are sometimes duped into giving recommendations not knowing the intention of the persons.
The recommendation I might have written would have been good for work, but not for conduct. And because it is not properly addressed to us, that is why the JP would not have known the location where it was intended. And therefore, the contact information and that follow-up call by us is necessary to verify that information.
The CEO says there are individuals who have been referred to them by JPs as role models within the community, who at times are demonstrably false, as they are involved in drug dealing and lottery scamming. He says incidents like these lead to a questioning of the JP's character.
And so it brings down the status of a justice of the peace in the eyes of the public.
He says the FLA has launched a massive investigation into activities in Manchester, as the parish is consuming a high level of ammunition, which, he says, when compared to other parishes, is cause for concern.
When we have application for over 100,000 rounds of ammunition to be used in the parish in 1 month by less than 10 persons, that raises alarm for us. And we have been tracking this for years. And we have seen the consumption level very high. I go further. We have found in the FLA's database convicted criminals in Manchester having firearms. Several persons, including conviction for illegal possession of firearms, getting a licensed firearm after the conviction was known. In fact, we have been tracking several license holders from Montego Bay, St. James, Westmoreland, who seem to find some comfort in coming to Manchester because we are watching their movements.
Rohan Daly, CVM Live.
And Superintendent Wayne Cameron of the Manchester Division is imploring licensed firearm holders to be careful when brandishing their firearms in an attempt to defuse any act of violence.
If you are going to diffuse a violent situation, you are going to have to follow through with it to the very end. What I mean now is that he would have to ensure that the men are held and taken into custody, or get the police to the scene to take the men into custody, whichever the case. But it can't be halfway, because you open up yourself for other things to happen in that case.
The first drop-in centre reflecting a collaborative approach has been opened to serve the needs of the homeless in the parish of St. Anne. Nicole Wilson tells us more.
As you know, we're just one step away from being homeless ourselves. As you know, anything can happen in life. But the fact is that we now have a facility in place to take care of all of us because we don't know what tomorrow brings.
Somber words from St. Anne's Bay Mayor Michael Belnavis while speaking at the opening of a drop-in centre in Buckfield, Ocherius. The facility, which was completed at a cost of $14 million, is the first of its kind in the parish and will provide care and comfort for the homeless. Local Government Minister Desmond Mackenzie says the services that will be delivered by the centre will offer some relief for the at least 59 homeless persons in the parish while restoring in them a sense of dignity. The project, he says, was done through what he describes as the collective response of government.
The Ministry of Labour and Social Security, the Ministry of Health, and the Ministry of Local Government and Community Development are partners as we create a serious onslaught on poverty and to create a greater atmosphere for those in the society who require services.
Meanwhile, Deputy Superintendent of Police in charge of operations says they are working to address any concerns which may arise about the centre's location.
The management team, though, is aware, and when I speak of the management team of the JCF in St. Anne, is aware that there may be some concerns with this facility being open in this community. We stay here today as the JCF. We are committed to working with the community members, other stakeholders, alleviating those concerns.
Nicole Wilson, CVM Live.
Held for the first time in Jamaica, the Anthony N. Sagwa Caribbean Awards for Excellence, staged at the Jamaica Pegasus Hotel, saw some of the Caribbean's finest scholars being recognized for their service and exemplary work. CVM Live's Vaughan Thorpe has that report.
A true story of the excellence that exists within the Caribbean. The ANSA Caribbean Awards recognize the number of scholars excelling in areas of arts, entrepreneurship, public and civic contributions, science and technology.
And they look out not so much to the past. They look very much to the future.
The 2018 staging saw the fourth ever Jamaican to be awarded, English professor Key Miller, for his sterling contribution as a poet and novelist.
So Mr. Norman Sagba, Maria Nielsen, distinguished guests, family, friends, I recognize and receive this award tonight for what it is, an act of love. A way that the Caribbean has chosen to love me back, me and my fellow laureates, for the work that we do, and I know that love comes with its own responsibility, the responsibility to return it.
Miller's work engages Caribbean themes of race, identity and immigration, and has produced 3 novels, a short story and 4 poetry collections, and he looks forward to producing more.
There are always books in the pipeline. The most pressing project is a book of essays called The Most Important Things, so that will be the newest, the book that will come out next.
Other Jamaicans who have received the award since its inception are founder of the Mustard Seed Communities, Father Gregory Ramkisoon, medical scientist Professor Terence Forrester, and child rights activist Claudette Richardson-Pius. Vaughan Thorpe, CVM Live.
This is CVM Live. We go to a break ahead of news from over. Welcome to CVM Live, the evening edition on this Mother's Day. I'm Curlin Brown. Coming up in our 90-minute news program, we'll have the major news stories, entertainment news, Inspire Jamaica, sports and weather at the top of the hour. But first, in case you missed them, let's join Joel Crosskill, who will take you through the main news stories of the past week.
Thanks, Curlin. Hello, glad you could join us for CVM Live Rewind, CVM's weekly recap of the top stories from our newsroom. I'm Joel Crosskill. It was a week of major flooding and the opposition taking NIDDS to court. Special welcome also to our viewers in the New York tri-state area. Westmoreland appears one of the hardest hit parishes by the incessant rainfall across the island, leaving many residents marooned and major damage to roadways. CVM Live's Khadija Thomas has our report.
The persistent rainfall that has done major damage across the country has left many in conditions of peril, and Westmoreland was not spared the onslaught. Sunday night's deluge left many marooned, forcing the closure of businesses and the destruction to homes. The residents have suffered in the wake of floodwaters, with transportation impacted, leaving residents stranded.
And all children can't go to school. They have managed to come out due to persons who are trying to help them, like other community members that come out and help them to remove some of their valuables along with themselves.
Our Westmoreland correspondent braved the conditions to assess the level of damage, greeted with pictures of dismay, submerged graves and inundated roadways. Many vehicles were parked in the water as drivers would not venture out after the rainy morning. The best mode of public transportation appeared to be bikes and bicycles, as cars and trucks were barely able to maneuver the water, leading to pileup of traffic. But if there was any good to take away, crabs were out aplenty. Residents are now saying areas are still impassable. Areas such as Broughton, Lodge Road and the main road to Negril now said to be blocked.
The bridge down there, nobody can cross it, come or we go through. Because this water from here lead cross another bridge down there. If you go to the other bridge down from the main of Broughton. Near Margaret go to and go see Broughton Sea. Right. So nobody can come up from Broughton, nobody can come this way.
Only two potential ways to enter the community.
Some who can swim, then go Devlin and come out back out of Sheffield.
Residents now saying the intense flooding could have been avoided if the river had been cleaned.
I'm off 4 or 5 years now in a clean. More than 4 or 5 years now in a clean. I look where MP office there. It should have just wash good on in a river.
The residents are hopeful the water will soon recede, which will allow them to return to some semblance of normalcy. Khadija Thomas, CVM Live.
With heavy rains continuing to impact roadways in several parishes, residents of Taylorland in Bull Bay showed their resilience with a project to repair the major bridge that provides access to their community.
The unity of the Taylorland community in Bull Bay St. Thomas proved its strength by combining resources to repair a bridge that was threatening to fall apart and isolate the community.
And we are here in Taylorland. We're starting out the bridge because we need it, and nobody couldn't go across the bridge, so we're here now. Do a little thing that we can get it to use now, because it's out of service, and now it's in a service by us as the member of the community, doing a little small thing that we can get it up and running.
The residents began the repair operation of their own volition after heavy rains threatened to maroon the community.
On the behalf of the peoples of Taylorland, it's month now this bridge is out of use. School children can jump in it and injure themselves. If anybody takes sick, we cannot come out. We have to take the alternate route. Now it is the rainfall, we cannot enter there. So the people this morning decide to come out and give a helping hand. The guys them buy cement, them get board, they get sand, and everybody come out.
During the repair process, P&P caretaker for the area, Joan Gordon-Webley, became involved, adding to the complement of cement that was being used to strengthen the ends of the bridge.
We are tired of calling NAA. We are tired of calling and speaking with the MP. Nobody has come. So we are here today to do what we can, because we can no longer allow the people to be marooned inside of Taylorland. We have people who are pregnant, we have sick. We have to make sure that we have passage for them. This is just a stopgap measure because many of the planks are rotting out. We've been able to remove some planks, but more planks need to be removed.
Residents of the Kingston community of Seaview Gardens are calling on their political representatives to address drainage problems that have been plaguing the community. CVM Live's Nicoy Wilson reports.
Styrofoam boxes, plastic bottles, cardboard and pieces of wood are among the debris causing severe blockage of a gully in Seaview Gardens, Kingston. This blockage causes consistent overflowing of the gully.
Every time the rain fall, right here, the debris from uptown, all the gully, them chairs, a lot of fridge and stove, tires, all the, you can see behind me. You have all old carpet, all kind of old things in the gully. Sometimes when the wash come here, so now, it's black right here.
Bailey says that the debris does not originate from residents of Seaview Gardens, but from elsewhere.
And this is not Seaview Gardens' fault. It's the people who live on the gully bank. Throwing all kind of debris, all kind of old fridge, all kind of old stove, big wood. So, man, I better gone off there here. I'll try to cut out the wood to get the road clear, because when the rain fall, look more from this. See the gully black there? The whole road I go full of debris again.
The persistent rainfall now being experienced creates a worrying situation for residents, and so they are calling for the problem to be addressed.
Because the draining system continue blocking up. Lots of buckles and other stuff. The gully need proper cleaning. And in front, the school, the primary school, they have a terrible drainage problem there also.
Nicole Wilson, CVM Live.
In light of the increased rainfall that led to flooding in several parishes across the island, the Mayor of Kingston, Delroy Williams, says he has assessed the damage within the corporate area, finding several inadequacies with drainage systems.
Mayor Williams says the Kingston area was not severely affected by the rainfall, but some roadways were blocked, which required immediate action. The mayor says steps were taken to remove the silt that was brought about by floodwaters along downtown and Harbour View.
The JCF and the Mobile Reserve and the Traffic Department moved quickly and effectively removed the debris from the roadway with the assistance of the KSAMC Engineering Department. So we were able to remove the debris and silt from the roadway. So as we speak now, the roadway is cleared and returned to vehicular movement.
Mayor Williams notes they have also assessed the drainage system from Bay Shore to the Kingston Harbour, as many homes were affected by the flooding.
We have asked the City Engineers Department to do an assessment, to do an estimate of what it would cost to construct a proper drain from Bay Shore to the harbour. We have also asked that a meeting be held with the National Works Agency, and I personally will be speaking with the Minister of Local Government on the matter.
And he says they have initiated their emergency response in the area. He's now urging residents to practice proper disposal of their garbage, as failure to do so will end in environmental consequences. Khadija Thomas for CVM Live.
We take a break. More CVM Live Rewind when we return. Rewind. You can follow CVM TV on Twitter at CVM TV, or like our Facebook page at facebook.com/CVM TV. In a move to establish greater economic independence in Jamaica, the Finance Minister, Dr. Nigel Clark, has announced the government's advances in establishing an independent fiscal council, in fostering inclusiveness in the policy discussion space. CVM Live's Khadija Thomas reports.
Economic independence is not independence from the International Monetary Fund, Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark says. The move to establish an independent fiscal council concerns implementing the right policies in enhancing accountability for economic policy making.
Economic independence requires us to pursue policies that result in Jamaica having greater flexibility and increased ability to address priority areas as determined by the people of Jamaica from time to time.
The Finance Minister notes that this will allow for greater transparency around fiscal policy and will allow policymakers to maintain credible decision-making. the deviation from such warranting an explanation. While giving an illustration of Jamaica's budget, the finance minister says allocations have to be made for unplanned expenditure, which he identifies as the blue bucket.
And what people want, they want the government to work for them. They want their services to be delivered. They want their roads and their garbage and their street lights, things that cost money and that have to come from this blue bucket. So in order for us to meet the priorities of the Jamaican people, the strategy is and has to be the increasing of this blue bucket. So when I speak of economic independence, that is what I mean.
Dr. Nigel Clark maintains that this approach will require the commitment of all stakeholders across the public and private sector in engaging partnerships and investment.
Fiscal councils are permanent, independent, non-partisan institutions staffed by competent, experienced, and technically proficient persons that help to promote economically sustainable fiscal policies across political cycles.
The finance minister notes that the Fiscal Council will have access to legislative data and will deepen democratic accountability by reducing the fiscal illusion where the public believes that the government has more resources than it lets on. Khadija Thomas, CVM Live.
Drivers, mechanics and auto body personnel of the Jamaica Fire Brigade are on sick-out as a form of protest action against the prolonged delays in their wage talks. The National Workers' Union is once again calling on government to return to the bargaining table. CVM Live's Vaughan Thorpe has this report.
Pussyfooting around the issue. That's National Workers' Union Vice President Arthur Grant's description in plain words regarding coming to some agreement between the workers contracted by the Jamaica Fire Brigade and the Ministry of Local Government and Community Development. Drivers, mechanics and auto body repair personnel across the country are all on sick-out. This Grant expresses as a form of protest action against the prolonged delays in their wage talks, adding that workers are extremely fatigued and experiencing symptoms of work-related stress.
One of the reasons why the workers became so frustrated is that there are certain items that were agreed. For example, salary. We would have agreed on the percentage increases, those similar to which was given to the public sector.
Following contacts made with the acting permanent secretary from the ministry, Grant said he was told that they are awaiting guidance from the Ministry of Finance. He, however, stated the opposite is true.
I have personally made contact with the Ministry of Finance. The Ministry of Finance has no idea what the Ministry of Local Government is talking about. And therefore, we see this as a deliberate attempt by the brigade and the ministry, I would dare say, to frustrate the workers, to deny them of the benefits that they ought to be having as persons offering their skills.
Grant added that the union has also taken into consideration the impact of the sick-out on the public.
The aim is not to have the impact that it will certainly have on the public, persons who would probably call in if there's an emergency situation or so. The aim is to bring attention to the issues that are affecting the workers and for management to address them.
Vaughan Thorpe, CVM Live.
There was an outcry from residents in the Riverton community who said they had to bring their children to the doctor for respiratory concerns. CVM Live sought a response from the mayor to the hazardous fire, and as Curlin Brown reports, he is calling for cooperation to end these wanton burnings.
It's really a serious issue. It's a serious health issue. It's a serious environmental issue. It's an issue that we ought to take seriously as a country, and I believe we have been doing so.
A statement of fact from Mayor Delroy Williams, who is not afraid to point out this is not the typical yearly inferno spewing soot across the corporate area.
We take note that this fire is really not at the Riverton City dump.
While acknowledging the country is bothered by unauthorized burning in general, he zoomed further.
So I'm aware that there was a multi-agency meeting held to address the issue. I urge all the players, all the agencies involved to move quickly to bring an end to this burning of tires in the Riverton City area.
Even with recommendations and emphasis on the risks, however, the mayor seems to skirt around fanning the flame of blame beyond the direction from which it's coming, leaving what appears to be gaping holes.
All the agencies, we need to move quickly and stop this, because we cannot continue to expose our citizens, expose our residents to this and the contaminants that emanate from the burning of tires. Or coming out of the multi-agency meeting, now is the time for action. There are private individuals who are doing this. There are private individuals in the Riverton City area who are doing this. We must identify them and we must bring an end to this. Some of these substances get into the food chain and remain in the food chain for long periods of time and harmful to the health of our residents.
Curlin Brown, CVM Live.
Crash zones were the main focus for members of the Highway and Traffic Division of the Jamaica Constabulary Force as they carried out road safety operations across Jamaica. CVM Live's Nicole Wilson reports.
Mandela Highway, a black spot for motor vehicle accidents in recent weeks, was just one of the locations where traffic police on Tuesday carried out simultaneous operations across the island. Officer in charge of operations in the Jamaica Constabulary Force JCF Highway and Traffic Division, Superintendent Courtney Kubri, pointed to dangerous habits from motorists when using the Mandela Highway.
This newly built stretch of road, with motorists are speeding along this corridor and not using the lanes properly and are distracted for whatever reason and causing a number of collisions. Quite recently, there was a collision that resulted in fatality, and that individual has been charged.
He does not believe the collisions are caused by the size of the lanes, even though he acknowledges the complaints.
And even though persons are complaining that the lanes are narrow, I think they are in fact wide to accommodate vehicles. You have large vehicles that traverse here and no problems. What is happening? Persons are distracted for whatever reason, and persons are speeding along this corridor. And I also wish to advise them that in a construction zone, the speed limit is 40 kilometers, right? Not 50, not 60, not 70.
Even the highway, he notes, comes with guidelines.
I just want to use this medium to advise the motoring public, those that are approaching that newly built of road, heading west, as well as those that are descending it, that they are to do so with caution and to exercise that care that is needed.
Superintendent Kubri says the operation has been fruitful, especially in rural areas. In Trelawney, plates were removed from 7 vehicles thought to be unfit for the road, while in St. Anne, the police removed 20. Nicole Wilson, CVM Live.
We take another...
Welcome back. It's now time for our regional and international news with Nicole Wilson.
First, we start with news in the region. Caribbean residents are being told to gear up for the possibility of a major outbreak of dengue fever in 2018. The warning comes from the Caribbean Public Health Agency, CARFA. The agency says that the preconditions of abundant mosquito vector levels still exist, and increased levels of dengue are being reported in Latin America and elsewhere. The Trinidad-based CARFA says it is imperative to step up efforts to stop mosquito breeding as the rainy season begins in many countries. And in Trinidad and Tobago, at least 30 members of the University of Trinidad and Tobago UTT's academic staff were given letters of termination on Friday. This, as the financially plagued institution officially began a retrenchment exercise aimed at saving money. The letter issued served as a 45-day notice of the termination of their respective employment by reason of redundancy. In addition, the retrenched workers were expected to receive a severance payment based on the framework outlined in the Retrenchment and Severance Benefits Act. The employees were given 1 week from May 11 to collect their personal effects from their respective workspaces and until May 18 to return all university property in their possession. This is expected to be the first phase of an exercise which will see about 125 academic staffers from UTT's faculties across the Twin Island Republic going home.